Hey guys, it's me, Dr. G. I'm gonna try something a little new today. It's really hot in here because our air conditioning's down. So, I'm gonna do a little video on the Wahls protocol and essentially the breakdown of the diet and why we do the things we do and what leads to inflammation, etc. But it's really hot in Georgia, and my air conditioner's out, so I'm not wearing my white lab coat, so it will look a little unprofessional, but it's because it's every rep is a step, so it's rather appropriate. So we'll get right into it. I'm going to try to keep this rather short, but we'll get right into what we're talking about here. So when we talk about the Wahls protocol and initially like the why we do what we do, we talk about, like when I was kind of growing up and when I went to school, along with most of us, we kind of bought into the whole idea of the low-fat diet. And the problem with the low-fat diet is it ended up being a low-nutrient diet, right? It ended up being, we concerned ourselves so much with low-fat, and we ended up boosting our sugar, and we forgot about our nutrients, right? And so enter this doctor who is one of the pioneers, and we're going to talk about a few of them. This is Dr. Bruce Ames, and he talked about a lot about nutrient triage and the fact that as humans, one of our protective mechanisms was to utilize the nutrients that we had available to us, and aside to keep alive, for example. So we concentrate on things like the proteins, the fats, water, etc., and we didn't worry about the micronutrients. And this is what he was talking about. So he coined the term nutrient triage, that the body's going to use when it needs to use it just to keep alive. So, for example, we didn't necessarily feed our mitochondria just to the point that we wanted our brain to work and our heart to keep functioning, but we forgot about all these 40 essential micronutrients. Now, where that comes into play is these certain nutrients. There's about, hold on one second here, this will always be there we go. Zinc, magnesium, biotin, vitamin A, D, and K, lipoic acid, and acetyl-carotene. Now, these are the ones that keep coming up with things like multiple sclerosis, Parkinson's, etc., etc. So if we're not feeding ourselves, especially these key nutrients, then our body's starving and we're not even realizing it, because through nutrient partitioning or nutrient triage, as Dr. Ames quoted, it comes down to this. So it's becoming very, very important for us to understand that it isn't just the macronutrients, but we need the micronutrients. And bear with me a second while I get all this stuff going. Need the micronutrients to stay alive, to prevent cognitive decline. So enter another doctor, Dr. Randy Ertl. That's a J, but it's pronounced in the Spanish pronunciation. Now, he used the agouti mouse model, and what was interesting about these mice is they were genetically identical. And what he did, we took all of these mice, and what they did, they developed diabetes. They had insulin, was out of control, their blood sugars, etc., etc. So it led to obesity. It led to high glucose, like glycemic control was down, and their insulin response was unattenuated. So what his whole, and what we call him, Dr. Ertl, was the father of epigenetics. And what's the significance about epigenetics is that he was the first person that coined the term. So, we all kind of grew up thinking that, we are what our genes are. And that's true to a point, right? But let's go and talk about what he did with the mouse model here. So he took these mice, which were genetically identical, which is important because you isolate a lot of different factors, right? So he took these mice and he fed them a high nutrient diet, including B vitamin and methylated B vitamins. And lo and behold, is those mice that were bound to develop, obesity and develop diabetes. If you fed them the right nutrients, the majority of them did not develop the diabetes, did not develop the diabetes, did not develop the obesity, did not become sickly. The majority of them, the ones who were given the regular mouse food, they did. So that's rather profound because, before then, we never had the idea that we could have any control over our genetics. We thought that whatever genes that were given to, whatever things from our parents that gave us, was what we were dealt, and that was what we had to deal with. So the idea that we blame our mother and father for all the diseases is really over. So that's pretty profound. So now we understand that, yes, DNA from our mother and father, of course, but there's environmental factors. There's people we deal with. There's the environment, exposure to toxins. There's our mental state of mind. There's of course, our diet and the environment, methylation and acetylation. And so our diet is one that we very much can control. Our environment we can control. So just to say that we are dealt this hand of DNA in our genes, we can either tell our genes to turn on the good genes or to turn off the bad genes, or vice versa, depending on the environment we provide. So that's profound. That gives us control. That says, all right, you might have a disease like multiple sclerosis, but we could change. We're not definitely stuck with our diagnosis. So it even goes even a little further because the change becomes multi-generational. So this is just kind of a crude example, but it's an example. Let's say a mother that smokes. So not only does it affect her, it affects her baby, it affects the mother, and then it affects the babies as far as the offspring. So it's like a 3-generational change. So the epigenetics is a big deal, is a very big deal. And it's a welcome deal because that means that we have a chance, that just because that we have a diagnosis of multiple sclerosis or Lyme disease or rheumatoid arthritis, it still gives us a chance that we can change. So let's go back a little bit and to the point that let's go back in history to the foundation. We're all hunter-gatherers at one time. We ate what we could find. We ate what we could catch. We ate what was available to us. It wasn't as if we just go to the store and pick up. So what changed about that? Well, let's just give me a second here. I'm just trying to get all the slides up. Okay. So what changed? Well, we went from hunter-gatherers and where we ate what we could find. We ate what was in season. We ate what we could kill or catch. And about 10,000 years ago, we turned into a farming community or a farming based society in which we lived in communities, right? We developed seeds. We planted some seeds. We developed grains and legumes. This is only 10,000 years ago. How long has humanity been around? Well, a lot longer than 10,000. So really, in the grand scheme of things, this whole grain and legumes, this whole idea of farming and creating this is not very old. So what happened with that? Well, we had higher disease states, especially chronic disease. We had increased dental caries, which is dental cavities. And so that's, in my opinion, that started a trend. So then 6,000 years ago, we developed dairy. Then about 300 years ago, the Industrial Revolution started and introduced a high prevalence of sugar, white flour, trans fats. And this was the first time we began to see autoimmunity issues, things like rheumatoid arthritis, things like multiple sclerosis, etc., etc. And we also saw higher rates of obesity, mental health, diseases like diabetes and heart disease. So if we look through history, we can begin to track how things have changed. So let's look at this. This is post-World War II. If we look at sugar consumption with the rates of obesity, we see that the sugar consumption in 1850 just started to skyrocket to the year 2000 and on where we are now, and the obesity rate goes right confluent with it. So it begs the question, well, we're on sugar now, so is sugar addictive? I say yes. This is a PET scan, and so this is showing things lighting up. PET scans will show things lighting up. So this is your brain to the left on sugar. This is your brain on the right on cocaine. Now, is as addictive as cocaine? Well, the research says more so. That we've been trained, have our brains and by society has created sugar is something that's very delicious, very, very soothing to our brain. So sugar, some reports will say it's as 8 times addictive as cocaine. So that's just really, really profound. So why do we care? Well, if we look at sugar, we can also look at the same patterns. And this is just kind of funny because I talk about the phones, right? When we lose our phone, what happens? We freak out. So the industry, your industry, knows that we're addictable. That knows like that the phone stimulates those same centers. Also, people, sex addicts, video game addicts, alcohol, gambling, still stimulates that same part of your brain, that it's still that addictive center. So the sugar industry is really taking over. So why do we even care? Well, sugar, I have to give me a second here, guys. Sugar is one of the causes of inflammation, so we have to be concerned about sugar. And inflammation is really what we're talking about. Leads to a lot of different diseases. When we talk about sugar, we talk about the lack of glycemic control. We talk about ups and downs. Let me put so you can kind of see me. Our goal with the Wahls protocol or any diet is develop a stable blood sugar. If our blood sugars are bouncing all the way up, all the way down, and we keep producing insulin just to produce the insulin to bring the sugar down, multiple times a day, this leads to inflammation. And so we could focus a little on inflammation, right? But let's just break it down. What's one of the things we're concerned with? Well, the majority of us autoimmune type patients, inflammation leads to what? Leaky gut. And so what are the causes that we know that cause leaky gut or intestinal permeability? Now, there's a variety of things. Sugar is one of them, but NSAIDs like Motrin, ibuprofen, even aspirin, acid lowering drugs like H2 blockers. Sugar contributes to yeast overgrowth and the bacterial overgrowth. Also, we can have leaky gut can be aggravated by toxins, bacterial fragments, or undigested food or proteins. And the response is unequivocally inflammation. Let's see here. Sorry, guys, this is always difficult to work. So let me put the screen back on so you guys can see me. Okay. So when we talk about leaky gut, we're really talking about in our gut, in our intestines, is really one cell layer thick, right? And there's channels. And through inflammation, those channels could be open, closed, or wide open. They could be slightly open. So let's go to this picture, because this does a nice job, and I know it's small, so you guys will have a hard time reading it. But if we look at the tight junctions, is what it's called, between the cells of our gut and our intestines. So all the way to the right, you're going to see, and I don't know if you're going to be able to see my pointer here, but you'll see where there's minor leaks in the tight junctions. And that's quite not as bad. Maybe that'll give us some insensitivity, give us some inflammation. In the middle, wide open here, and that could diseases like cholera, etc. So we don't really want wide open cells. We don't even want leaky cells. We want our guts. We want our food from that we eat, and the different things that enter our GI system not to get into our bloodstream, because in our bloodstream, our body recognizes them as foreign. And if the body sees a foreign object, it's going to fight, and it's going to fight through inflammation. It's just one example. Let me see here. So let's go back to leaky gut. Now, leaky gut syndrome, one of the big causes or culprits is gluten/grains, especially wheat, rye, and barley. Also, casein. Casein is a milk protein that's in most milks. Now we could talk about A1 milk versus A2 milk, but they both consist of caseins. One may be better than the other. Hard to say, but Dr. Wahls recommends that we avoid all dairy. NSAIDs like ibuprofen, ketoprofen, different types of painkillers, aspirins could be irritant. Of course, the sugar feeds the yeast. And for those of us over 50, we can develop a low stomach acid. It's exacerbated by if we're on H2 blockers. H2 blockers are acid lowering type medications. Okay, let's see what else we got here. Okay. So really, we could break down most diseases to inflammation, right? Most diseases are caused by inflammation. And if you look at a lot historically, most diseases will be blamed on gut problems, gut health. So especially through functional medicine, we address the gut first. So is it just gluten? Well, the problem with a lot of dairy is it has similar proteins and similar effects to gluten. There's cross-reactivity. There's cross-reactivity to other grains. corn, millet, oats, rice, yeast. It's not just isolated to gluten. Say, all right, we're just going to eliminate wheat. But we also are going to have to, that's why Dr. Wahls wants to eliminate most grains, and then dairy and eggs fall right in there as also cross reactivity. Now, can some people eat eggs? Yeah, some people can eat eggs. But yeah, we have to remember a lot of times that we're going to have sensitivity to wheat, dairy, or eggs, and we're going to have normal symptoms. It's not going to show up. All right, we're not going to have GI symptoms. It's possible that we could have a total inflammation in other part of our body, our brains, our spinal cord, and have no other symptoms. So there's a very different between a sensitivity and a celiac disease. Celiac disease, if we take a biopsy of the intestine, we're going to see it. We're going to see the inflammation. But with sensitivity, we're not necessarily going to see the inflammation. We're only going to have to. So how do we do it? Well, Dr. Wahls recommends that we take it out for at least 100 days. Take out your sugars, take out your grains, take out your dairy, take out your eggs, take it out for 100 days. And then reintroduce and see for yourself. So, rather than take her word for it or my word for it, is to test. And we call that the elimination diet. And 100 days may be a lot for some people. Maybe somebody can't do it with 100 days. Maybe they do 60 days, maybe 90 days, It depends. You have to work with your patients. So let's get this to the other slide. This will be the last slide, guys. Okay. So let's really pick on these things, because there's a lot of people that are confused about it or just not sure of it. So, you could bring in gluten. Now, gluten is not just gluten; it's the proteins in gluten, gliadin, and so we see that 90% have sensitivity to gluten, but without any GI symptoms. And they have very, very similar amino acid sequence to casein, which is in milk. But let's go back even a little further, because there's a very good point to be made here. So for some people, when they had lesions on their MRI, if they eliminated gluten 100%, the lesions went away. Now, that's not to say that if you've had lesions there for more than a couple of years, they're probably not, they're not, rather not going to go away. Highly unlikely. But if they're fresh lesions, excluding something like gluten and dairy, it's almost, I don't want to say for certain, but it's a high probability of the lesions going away. Let's go back to the slide here. So let's pick on dairy. Caseins are strong antigens found in dairy. We know by research, the more milk you drink, the more chance of Parkinson's you have. The more milk you've drank, the more chances of multiple sclerosis you have. So, what is milk good? Well, yes, if you're a baby and perhaps even an adolescent, there's growth factors that milk stimulates, and that's good if you're a baby or an adolescent, but it's not so good if you're an adult. Why? Well, think about growth factors. What don't we want to grow? Cancer, fibroids, GI polyps. We don't want any of those to grow, right? We don't want large of those. So to feed an adult milk with all the allergens associated with the cross reactivity to gluten, it's a no-brainer, right? It's a no-brainer. Next, let's, not to pick on eggs, because I grew up on eggs and I love eggs, right? Well, the one characteristic or one piece of research that really kind of set me aback was over 70% of people with irritable bowel syndrome have a reaction to eggs that they don't even realize. So we talk about eggs. Are eggs good? Yeah, in yolks, a lot of good things, choline, a lot of good fats, etc., etc. But the protein. So how do we test for that? Well, it's the same thing, the elimination diet. So if you eliminate it for 100 days and then you go back, test out some yolks for a couple of days and see what you think. See how you feel. Sugar contributes to inflammation. And for me, when I lost the ability to speak, I lost the ability to thrive. It was all these things, and I don't know which is what. I do have the occasional eggs, but then I seem to suffer from it. I do have the occasional sugar in the form of sweeter fruits, and then I suffer. I have my speech suffer. My stomach suffers when I have eggs. So this is just the beginning. I just really want to start breaking down kind of the Wahls protocol and her philosophy as a Wahls protocol coach, and just as a medical professional, just trying to bring you guys some of this information, just trying to eliminate some of the misinformation or the stuff that's definitely not clear. So what David Lyons and I are deciding to do is that perhaps we'll do like a month of a couple of videos like this, and then perhaps we'll do an 8 weeks no cost course in which we really break down the protocol if you guys are interested in this kind of format. So if you are, please chime in. What I'm going to do now with this video is I'm going to download it and put it on the Every Rep is a Step website and go from there. But yeah, I'm reading all your notes. I love everything you're saying, guys. So, if you like this and you found it informational, let me know. The other thing is, I am going off the knowledge that I've learned. Not everything I'm going to say is going to be correct. If there's something that you guys don't agree with, or you guys want me to correct, or please, my ego is very, very small at this point, and so just let me know. All right, you guys have a great night. I'm gonna go have dinner with my family and hopefully get the air conditioner fixed so I don't have to. I can wear my doctor's uniform next time. But anyways, be well, everybody, and God bless. We'll talk to everybody soon.